Hi everybody, I'm Geist, your host here at Samoyed Sagas, and today I'm bringing you another chapter of Murder on Green Hill Island by Two-Tailed Fox. Chapter 6. The makeup artists finished fussing over Sonic's nose after some of the purple bruising had begun to show throughout the show and scurried off into the wings of the studio. Sonic winced slightly, his nose still in pain, but he had been instructed not to fuss over it, and to be professional for the interview, so he did just that. Instead, he tried to change his thoughts by focusing on the golden Tenric. Gold sipped her piping hot cup of coffee secured in a cardboard takeaway cup. As the cameraman began his ritualistic countdown from 5 to 2, she quickly held out her arm. Without needing to say a word, an orange porcupine, who appeared to be the Tenric's intern, rushed up and grabbed the cup. He just managed to dart out of the view of the camera lens when the cameraman signaled to Gold to start. Welcome back to Golden Stories with Gold! Today, I still have Sonic the Hedgehog with me, recounting his experiences on the fateful night of the Green Hill Island murders. So please continue, she addressed him formally, turning to look him in the eyes. Sonic couldn't believe how she could just go about her daily business and suddenly get completely ready within 5 short seconds. She must have been doing this a while to perfect the art. Well, anyways, Tails had gone back to sleep, still quite infuriated and slightly depressed due to his conversation with Fiona. Sonic began. I've been meaning to ask you about that. You've been retelling events that occurred when you were not present. How did you know what happened? Gold interrupted, her curiosity getting the better of her. All in good time, Sonic smirked. So anyways, Fiona had wandered her way down the path and arrived at the door of the eerie, deserted mansion. Fiona stalked through the night, slipping in through one of the windows left open. She couldn't bring herself to use the front door. No matter how much she hated Cream and Blaze, seeing their deceased bodies lying on the floor was still too much for her. Fiona was quite skillful in the art of sneaking stealthily and quickly through the shadows. Reaching a small enclosed room on the 3rd floor of the mansion, she recalled back to when Scourge and she had scouted out the place, trying to find where the rabbit was keeping all of her earnings. She retraced her steps of the previous night until she reached the same room with the big wall safe. She knew that this would be the spot that Cream would have kept her money, seeming as there was nowhere else in the mansion. On the previous night, Fiona had discovered that there was a digital 6-lettered password instead of a turn combination, which made it impossible for her to crack using her usual methods. However, as she skidded across the carpeted floor and stood up next to the safe, she recalled some information she had learned. She knelt down and began pressing the buttons. S, H, A, D, O, W. There was a satisfying ding before the lock released and the door swung open haphazardly. Fiona smirked devilishly to herself, rubbing her hands together and licking her lips at the prospect of how much money she was about to make. However, when she wrenched open the safe door forcefully, she was all but happy. Inside the safe was absolutely nothing. No cash, no coins, no cards, nothing. Where's all the money? She whispered aloud to herself, scratching her head in thought. Suddenly, a horrible thought crossed her mind, and one by one, all the pieces finally fell into place. No, if there's no money, that would mean... Fiona thought out loud, but was suddenly interrupted by a slow clapping sound behind her. Clap, clap, clap. Fiona swiveled around and locked eyes with somebody standing in the doorway. You were the last person I thought would figure it out, the individual chuckled, raising a knife. The metallic surface glinted in the moonlight, highlighting the malefic expression on the animal's face as they stepped closer. Why did you do it? Fiona asked, darting her eyes around the room to look for a mistake. Oh, isn't it obvious? You're never going to get away with it. I already have, the intruder replied before pouncing at Fiona, knife outstretched. Fiona acted quickly, ducking under the swing of the blade and darting as fast as she could out of the room. Her assailant acted fast, bending down to grab a hold of the carpet with both hands. The murderer quickly heaved the carpet backwards and with all of their strength caused it to shift underneath Fiona's feet. The nimble fox wasn't expecting the sudden change in surface and stumbled, trying to regain her balance. The assailant quickly took the opportunity to lunge at Fiona, shoving her off of her feet. The last sounds that were heard before the mansion was thrust into another eerie silence was the blood-curdling screams of revenge and the earth-shattering crunch of Fiona's bones as she fell backwards over the banister and plummeted down to her death, colliding with the wooden floor below. Scourge awoke with a start, panting heavily as he darted his gaze around the campsite. It took him a second to adjust to his surroundings. Near him, Blaze, Tails, Amy, Shadow, and Mina were all laying down, seemingly fast asleep. He looked over to a disgruntled sapphire hedgehog contained inside a wooden cage that they had previously constructed, his eyes fastened shut. Scourge yawned groggily before laying his head back down to rest. After a few seconds passed, he suddenly snapped his eyelids back open and sat up with a start, waking the sleeping hedgehog next to him. "Scourge?" Shadow asked through a yawn as he stretched out his arms. "Go back to sleep," he commanded with a rough tone, still not quite used to the whole friend thing. "There's a nicer way to say it," Shadow replied bitterly as he cracked the bones in his back. "Seriously, what's up?" he persisted. "Where's Fiona? I haven't seen her. She's probably off taking a piss or something." Shadow shrugged before he lay back down. "There's a fucking killer out there, and we're just having her alone?" Scourge snapped back quietly at Shadow. "Fiona can handle herself," Shadow retorted. "I know, but I'm not going to chance it. I'm leaving with or without you," he said dismissively as he stood up and began jogging away from the campsite. "Hey, wait up!" Shadow called after the green hedgehog as he chased after him. His final call startled Blaze, who groggily began to sit up. She squinted, just making out the hazy figures of Shadow and Scourge through her sleep-covered eyes. Guys, wake up!" she yelled, realizing that they were rushing away. "What is it?" Amy asked, jumping with a start in an alert position frantically. "What's so important? I need my beauty sleep for tomorrow," Mina cooed annoyingly. "I just saw Shadow and Scourge rush off to the mansion trail," Blaze answered. A collective gasp ran through the remaining three animals. "Probably off looking for Fiona," Tails muttered under his breath, still hurt from his previous encounter. "Why would you say that?" Amy asked. Never mind. Let's go and find them before something bad happens to them." Tails diverted her question. The group all began to leave the site when a familiar sapphire hedgehog called out desperately to them. "Guys, don't leave me here. Let me out and I can help," Sonic whined. "You're a killer, and we can't do that," Blaze dismissed harshly, the open wound from Silver and many other deaths still stinging her. Tails shot Sonic a submissive, sorrowful frown before turning and jogging off with the others. The trip to the mansion didn't take very long, and it was sped up instantly when the group heard a faint, anguished yell coming from inside the mansion. They all instantly broke into a frantic sprint, hastening into the mansion. They dodged past the body of Cream, who was still lying next to the couch, and rushed over to where the stairs were. "Scourge, calm down," Shadow tried to place a comforting hand on Fiona's body, but to no avail. "Who the fuck did this?" Scourge cursed, turning around to scan the faces of the group. "Scourge, let's just all take a deep breath," Mina murmured calmly, trying to defuse the tense situation. "This was that fucking hedgehog, wasn't it?" Scourge bellowed, narrowing his eyes at nothing in particular. "I'll get that son of a bitch." Before anybody had time to comprehend and process his threats, Scourge had already blown past the encircling onlookers and sprinted out of the mansion. "Oh no," Amy squealed. "He's going to take his revenge on Sonic!" She frantically began running towards the exit as the sudden wave of realization washed over the others. None of them were slow in following the pink hedgehog out at the door and down the gravel path. All except a skeptical. "Something doesn't seem right here," Blaze muttered to herself, taking a moment of pause to look over the body. Apart from a small patch of the vixen's fur missing, there didn't seem to be any knife wounds. "I can't see any signs of a struggle, meaning that she couldn't have been pushed off. She must have..." "Aha!" Blaze smiled, noticing the corner of the third-floor carpet hanging slightly. Blaze, come on, let's go catch up with the others. I know a shortcut back to the campsite quicker, a voice called out from the door. Just a second, I think this is all starting to come together. The carpet, the fall, and only one person knew where Fiona would be going, she stated. Oh, but Blaze, anybody could have woken up and seen Fiona storm off. Besides, she can't have gotten ahead of me since I know all the shortcuts around this island. Don't you think I would have done my research beforehand? The animal stepped closer. Yeah, of course somebody could have seen it and stalked Fiona, catching up through... Blaze's eyes slowly opened wider as the gears began to spin in her mind. A shortcut that you said we can take back together, she finished. Exactly. So, come on. We really should get going, the voice mocked, taking a step closer. Yeah, you go on ahead, and I'll catch up in a second, Blaze said, trying to remain calm. Beads of sweat began to form on her brow. Nah, I'll stay and wait. Stay away from me, Blaze warned, a small orange flame burning in the palm of her hands as she got into a battle-ready stance. You really think that can work on me? The voice mocked, raising a knife that had been previously concealed behind the individual's back. You won't get away with... Blaze began before the glinting knife was hurled through the air, meeting its mark. The sharp blade of the knife struck Blaze right through the forehead, sinking deep into her skull, right between her eyes. Blaze felt the life suddenly escape her body through a final gasp as the fire in her hands fizzled out and dissipated into the surrounding air. Her knees buckled under her weight, and she fell to the floor. I already did, the voice chuckled, as the animal slipped out of the mansion, slipping through the aforementioned shortcut, leaving Blaze the cat lying on her back, with a large knife protruding out of her forehead, eyes still bulged open. It's been about 10 minutes since his friends had all rushed off to investigate Fiona's sudden disappearance. Sonic was sitting back, resting it against one of the wooden bars of the poorly constructed cage, when he saw the first one of the group to reemerge into the clearing. Hey, Scourge, what happened to Scourge began to ask, but was cut off when Scourge wrenched open the door and gripped Sonic by the collar of his shirt. Hey, what's the big idea? You killed Fee. He stared angrily at him, his nostrils flaring with rage and fire unlike any Sonic had ever seen burning in his eyes. Scourge pulled Sonic upwards into the air with all of his force and threw him into the dirt. Sonic rolled along the ground, coming to a halt as a small cloud of dirt billowed around him. Scourge, you've got it all wrong, Sonic replied, holding up his hands. I don't want to fight. Neither did Fee, but that didn't stop you, Scourge accused before he pounced. Without warning, he had jumped on top of Sonic's body, pinning him to the ground with one of his hands. He positioned his knees around the hedgehog's body so there was no way for Sonic to get up before he began his assault. Scourge raised his fist and brought it down, slamming it down onto Sonic's face. His knuckles collided with the bridge of Sonic's nose, causing a shriek of pain to emanate from the sapphire hedgehog. Scourge, fueled by rage, brought his fist back up and slammed it down on Sonic's face again and again, repeatedly. He continued to hit Sonic with a barrage of punches, not letting up his onslaught for a second. Sonic tried to wiggle out of Scourge's powerful grasp, but he was unable to free himself. He just had to lay there and take punch after punch. His nose was bruised and bloody, red liquid trickling down from it. He was sure that it was broken, and each consecutive hit, it felt more and more like it would never properly heal. Scourge, stop! Amy and Shadow yelled simultaneously as they both appeared next, followed closely by Mina and Tails. Shadow grabbed Scourge by the waist and heaved with all of his strength, sending Scourge flying backwards. Foam was still frothing from his mouth as he cursed the hedgehog's name. Sonic? Are you okay? Amy asked, skidding to a halt next to Sonic and kneeling down to look over his wounds. Sonic said nothing. He only coughed up blood. How dare you! Amy barked at Scourge, standing up and marching over to him. She rolled up her sleeves, getting ready to show the hedgehog a thing or two. Quickly, Amy's getting out of control, Tails yelled to Mina and Shadow. Together, the three of them managed to procure Scourge, holding back his arms and body as they hauled him over to the cage and threw him in. Amy grabbed the door of the cage and slammed it closed with all her might. The wooden cage rattled under the sudden force, but through its shoddy craftsmanship, it managed to stay standing. "Why'd you have to do that? It was obvious you were the one that killed Fiona, and the others anyways," she spat at him. "How dare you," Scourge yelled. "I didn't kill shit." "That's kinda hard to believe after that display," Mina chimed in, looking at him through the cage. "Why the hell would I kill the love of my life?" "Was she? She seemed pretty pissed off when she found out that you wanted to be a good guy, even though we all know how that turned out." Amy gestured to Sonic. "That's bullshit and you know it," Scourge hissed. "Back me up here, Shadow." Shadow remained silent, unable to look at Scourge after seeing the display. "Shadow?" "See, not even Mr. Brooding himself can show you any sympathy." Amy hissed again, unable to contain her anger after seeing her beloved attacked by this creature. "How could I have killed her? Shadow, you were with me the whole time," Scourge reasoned, slowly calming himself down so that he could produce a reasonable excuse to his alibi and whereabouts. "That isn't any proof, Scourge. Fiona was dead quite a bit before we found her. Any one of us could have gotten up in the middle of the night and killed her. This whole display could be just an act. You guys did have a massive fight before she was killed," Shadow thought constructively. Tails was kneeling beside Sonic, holding a paper towel over the nose as he helped Sonic to his feet throughout their conversation with Scourge in the cage. "Thanks, Tails. I'm all right," he murmured, walking over to the cage. Well. Look at the irony. The one who helped build this cage was the one who's now going to be stuck in it," Sonic murmured, trying to get some sweet revenge on the angry hedgehog. "I'm not the killer, and you know it," Scourge demanded. "Hey, Amy, didn't you say that you remembered seeing red before?" Mina asked, turning to the distraught pink hedgehog. "Yeah? Why?" "Well, could it have been possible that you remembered seeing the red shades and flames on his black jacket in the night?" "Oh, that would explain some things," Tails chimed in, placing his thumb onto his chin in thought. "But we can't rule out anything else entirely until we have proof," Tails finished. "Exactly," Scourge mumbled angrily, his rage steadily building again, only being stoked by Sonic's snide comments about irony. "No, I think we all just saw the proof we need. He's unstable and probably fucked in the head," Sonic said plainly. "Definitely. Scourge is our killer without a doubt," Mina added. "Agreed," Amy said confidently. "Sorry, Scourge. I thought we were really bonding, but killing people is unforgivable," Shadow added, turning his back on the hedgehog. "You will all regret this," he fumed angrily, grabbing the wooden logs that supported the makeshift cage as he tried to break them apart. However, the thick, sturdy logs were too strong for that angered hedgehog to break out. "You're not going to escape and kill anyone anymore," Mina stated. "You better hope not, little mongoose," he screamed, "because when you're all dead, I didn't kill any of the others, but now, when I finally make my way out of this cage, the rest of you are all dead," he threatened, malice clearly evident in his voice. "If that isn't a confession, I don't know what is," Tails sighed, finally accepting the fact that Scourge had been the one killing everybody. Although he didn't want it to be any of his friends, he couldn't help but notice the weight that had seemingly been lifted from his back as he safely flushed through his system for the first time in 2 days. "Well, if we keep him in this cage and start working on trying to get off this blasted island, then we can get work done without fear anymore," Mina chimed in, trying to lighten up the mood. Scourge just chuckled. "What's so funny?" Sonic narrowed his eyes, furrowing his brows as he looked towards Scourge. "Nothing. I'm just thinking of how glad I am," he smirked wickedly. "Why?" Amy asked, confused. "I'm glad that I sunk that bloody ship." "So, it was Scourge then? He was the killer?" Gold asked. "It would seem that way, wouldn't it?" Sonic smirked, enjoying the look of annoyance on Gold's face. "Well, if that was the case, then how'd you all end up getting off the island? What did you do next? This can't be the end of your story," Gold said. Although she was intrigued, she secretly knew that there were still 15 minutes left of airtime, and they were scheduled for 3 more commercial breaks. There would be hell to pay and a figurative storm from her producers if they didn't get their precious ad revenue. "Well, there is a bit more to the story, you see," Sonic began, but was immediately interrupted by Gold. "Good. In that case, we should take this opportunity to cut to another commercial break. Do you think Scourge is really the killer, or will Sonic's tale suddenly take another dramatic turn? Find out when we return on Golden Stories with Gold. Alright, thanks guys for listening to yet another episode of Murder on Green Hell Island here on Samoyed Sagas. Thank you again for just being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the rebrand and the story. We'll be back with Chapter 7 next time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day or night. Bye-bye.